Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of the World of Brickfilms podcast. I am your host, William of AW Studios. Joining me today is my co-host and good friend, Raphael of BlackSmith Films.
What's up, guys?
And today's guest is Sean Willis of Sillypenta.
Hello.
Right, so 1973, the earliest known Lego stop-motion film, or Brickfilm, was released. And to celebrate the 45th anniversary in February, a special day dedicated to Brickfilms took place. So we all took part. Raphael, you did a Lego Christmas story, didn't you?
Yeah.
And Penta, you did your first part of your ongoing History of Brickfilm series.
Yeah, that's right.
And I did a 2-part timeline series, 45 years of World of Brickfilms. And it was kind of a collaborative project between me and Penta, because he really helped me with kind of coming up with which brick films to include, and it was an interesting project.
Yeah, there was a lot of collaboration in deciding which were the defining films of the years. It's very interesting to go through them all.
Yeah, because we would spend we would continue sort of talking about it quite late into each night, and yeah, I think it's really interesting, going through all these different films, and I think it gave people an opportunity to watch brick films that they may otherwise have not seen. And I think I really enjoyed working on it, and I felt like I'd like to kind of continue this kind of thing of showcasing, these kind of underappreciated brick films, pretty much, because a lot of these like earlier brick films, sort of. Like pre-YouTube years, especially, you just don't hear getting talked about.
Yeah, it's true.
So, Penta, you've been animating since 2007, is that right?
Yeah.
But you kind of had a presence in the sort of in the brick filming community from quite an early age, didn't you?
Not exactly in the community until 2007, but I've been sort of aware of brick films for a long time before then, starting when Lego released the Lego Studios Movie Maker set, which came out in Europe in 2001. At the time, I would have been too young to be able to afford it. But then in 2002, they released the Scary Laboratory set in the studio's line, which included a CD with sound effects and also animations by Spite Your Face. And those would have been the first brick films I saw. And then in 2002, at some point, I managed to find brickfilms.com and downloaded some of the films that were on there.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was difficult to watch them because you needed different codecs for the different file formats, and I didn't know about that. So I'd spend ages on dial-up internet trying to download the films, only to find that they wouldn't play most of the time.
Thanks.
It's really, when you really think about it, it wasn't really that long ago, because this is like, before YouTube, when you couldn't, whereas these days it's just so, easy to upload something. And back then, I mean, because you're downloading these things as well with the slow internet speed, it must have taken a really long time to actually get a chance to watch them.
Yeah, it feels like a completely different era, but it's only a small number of years removed from YouTube and faster internet being standard. But yeah, I mean, everyone had to wait hours to watch a film back then, and in the release threads from the time, you see that the first posts are a bunch of people saying that they're downloading the film now, and then they all come back 2 or 3 hours later and give their review of the film.
It's funny. That would really stink, though, when you're like really hyped for a video and then you have to wait another 3 hours to see it when you've already been waiting like a really long time.
But at the same time, it seems that it led to people they gave more consideration to each individual film because they had to put in more commitment. So in around 2002, 2003, the reviews and the release threads were a lot more detailed.
That's cool. Now I think most people watch them and just like skip. Like
it's a lot easier to do that now. Yeah.
It's kind of funny because like you think about it, like because you had to download them, it did lead to most of the time people deleting them from the hard drive once they've watched them. And if the actual original animators, if they no longer had the video on their hard drive, then you could end up with a lot of brick films being lost, and that is the case, isn't it? With a lot of
a lot of the time, in trying to track down films for the archive and the wiki, I often contact the original creators, and they don't have any of their old films. And a lot of the old stuff I've gotten has just come from a small handful of sources who never deleted any files and built up big collections over the years.
Yeah, it makes sense though. If I like had downloaded that stuff, I wouldn't have deleted them unless I was like lack of space or something.
But you would have had smaller hard drives back then too.
Oh, that's true. That's been difficult. I'm glad I live in this era.
Well, there's some benefits, all right, but at the same time, it feels like it would have been nice to have been fully around for all the foundational classic stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
Because then at some point I found brickfilms.com was missing. I don't know if it was down for a day or two, but I assumed it was just gone forever, so I stopped going on it. And in about 2003, maybe it must have probably when the switchover happened from version 1 of the site to version 2. It's probably experiencing downtime. But then after that, I had some experiments with a camcorder with Lego films with only the most rudimentary animation, on pressing on, pressing off very fast, just for 1 or 2 shots. And then later I saw a music video to Hardware Store by Weird Al, and this is on Weird Al's website in 2006. And after I saw that, I made a slideshow music video to a different Weird Al song. And then finally, in 2007, the music video Circle Circle Dot Dot by Blunty was featured on the front page of YouTube. And at this time, featured videos on the front page were hand chosen by staff. It was a lot more personal. It was just videos that people liked instead of, just Jimmy Kimmel spam. So yeah, I saw Circle Circle Dot Dot, and that became very popular on YouTube. And so after that, Blunty made a video called Stop Mo 101 because he was being asked by a load of new people how he made the video. And so I saw Stop Mo 101, and it explained, all the basics. And so from there, I thought, this seems very doable. So I started animating myself in 2007.
It's kind of funny because, I think, you said that one of the first Brickfilmers you kind of saw was Spite Your Face. And I think that's probably the case with a lot of Brickfilmers, because that's actually, I think it was his videos that were some of the first I saw actually as well.
Would that have been through the Monty Python DVD?
Yeah, actually that's how I sort of came across the Holy Grail Lego one. Yeah,
but they were available outside of the internet as well, very visible in many different sources. So definitely Spite Your Face, I'm sure, introduced a lot of people to brick filming, even if they didn't know that it was actually Spite Your Face who made the films at the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think you got to sort of thank Spite Your Face a lot for kind of helping the community grow, I think, in a long way. I think he was quite a pioneer in that kind of making films for Lego. He's one of probably the first examples of that, really.
Definitely the first recurring professional brick filmers for Lego, for Spite Your Face. And they were also early sharing brick films online in 2000.
Was he the one that made the Spider-Man video, the one with Doc Ock Peril?
Yeah, Peril of Doc Ock, the classic.
That was so good. I'm sorry, that was just amazing.
It is. I mean, and especially for 2004, it was just next level.
Well, it's quite mad because I think he's recently re-uploaded a lot of his stuff in HD. And it's kind of mad to think, because you always get this impression that these early brick films, they weren't high res, they were quite sort of low quality kind of picture. And you're seeing these versions, the original World War files, and they're incredible. It's I think it's 720p, isn't it? It's kind of mad.
Well, they would have been the only people using professional cameras, but it is still amazing to see those old films in HD, and they look just as good as something that could come out today. Previously, you've been watching them for years and pretty low quality.
Yeah. There's a lot of good book films out there. Definitely oldies.
So, because you're currently working on this history of brick films project, you've done one on the 70s and 80s, and your current project is the 90s. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been writing the script for the 90s video, and at the same time, I've been doing a lot of research for a Lego Studios video. So that's why there's been a delay. I'm kind of working on multiple videos at once, but hopefully they should start coming out a bit quicker. And I think that there's a lot of stuff I've even only discovered in just the last month or two, just for researching for the videos. I've been writing wiki pages on 90s and studios related topics for a couple of years now, but there's so much more that's still new to me. They're gonna be some interesting videos, I think.
Watching your video really made me realize that I'd only really sort of touched the surface with my with my project, because there were some ones that I'd never even heard of, like, you know, from the 70s and 80s. And I think it's ones you sort of been discovered really recently, and you search like YouTube and also you like really sort of dig deep to try and find these films.
Yeah, I think that I was basically the first person to really go out of my way to try and find as many as possible from the 70s and 80s, because there were a couple of other videos on YouTube about the history of Brickfilms, and I wanted to kind of be the opposite, like the antidote to those, because they were all essentially just reading Wikipedia and just talking about two films. So I had this impression that there was a lot more that you could find if you went looking. So I did it.
Nice.
Yeah, well, because I mean, most people have heard of Journey to the Moon and definitely the Magic Portal. They're kind of like the most well-known early ones, and I think a lot of people forget that there was so many that kind of really aren't very well known, and that's why projects like what you're doing now, and I think it's good to be kind of showcase these films and put them in the same light as these ones that people know a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I think also though, a lot of people used to think that the Magic Portal was the first film. And that was kind of weird.
People said that very often for a long time.
I even thought it was the first one for a while. And then I was like, oh, this the other one, and I didn't even know what it was.
I mean, I think everyone thought that the Magic Portal was the first at some point. Maybe recent people know Journey to the Moon now as well, but most people, I'm sure, would have thought the Magic Portal was first in some length of time. But I feel like the 90s have fallen by the wayside in a big way. Nobody talks about anything from the 90s, really. So I hope to change that with my video.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not seen many from the 90s, so I wouldn't exactly know. Yeah,
I'm thinking of calling it something like The Lost Decade of Brick Filming for a nice clickbait title.
You've only got one question from submitted question. And they ask, what is your opinion on CG brick films?
Yeah, this is a really good topic. And I defend CG brick filming and live action brick filming as legitimate forms of brick filming. Sometimes people would say things like stop motion is a real brick film. I think, or somebody might see a particularly good CG brick film and they might say like, oh, it's almost as good as a real brick film. But I consider them all to be real brick films. Yeah. Of course, they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and I think most people their favorite form is stop motion because it's the actual Lego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more raw. It's more true to like the actual toy itself.
But recently, with CG brick filming becoming more and more strict and adhering to the rules of Lego, it's becoming a lot more charming, I think.
Yeah, it is.
I think
once the Lego movie came out,
the Lego movie really changed it.
I think it's kind of like because before that, the brick films that Lego made themselves, the CG ones, they kind of they didn't really sort of play by the rules of Lego at all. Like you see, like the early like Star Wars ones are quite infamous for like the year 2000. They look nothing like actual Lego,
No, they don't.
Yeah, and even the video games that still get made, the cutscenes aren't like actual Lego.
Yeah, they're not very realistic either, though.
But the amateur CG brick filmers also didn't really follow the rules for the longest time.
Yeah,
which probably held it back from being viewed as equal, because it would have seemed like if you're not going to follow the rules, then it's not very important that it's actually a Lego film, is it? It could be anything.
Yeah, it's true.
I think it's quite interesting is that with the Lego movie, because that's kind of really the game changer, I think, when it came to that kind of thing, where things looking almost was photorealistic pretty much. Like first time I actually saw the Lego movie, I thought it actually was stop motion, and it is actually really convincing. I don't think they kind of I don't think they bend the walls much, do they really?
If at all, very, very little. But yeah, the Lego movie is a great example of what you can do and what you can do with CG that you can't do in stop motion, because even though it looks like stop motion, which makes it look great, it would be completely impossible to make something in the same scale with real Lego.
If you had a studio, like a professional stop motion studio, I feel like it would be almost possible to make something on that scale.
Well, I mean, it's all possible in theory because it's all based on real stuff, but you just wouldn't. Like nobody would make it at that scale if it was real. So sometimes people comment like, "Oh, this would be better if they made it with stop motion," but they don't realize that if they made it with stop motion, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
It'd be scaled down out of necessity. Or else, I mean, if they really stuck to how it looks in CG, it would take them about 20 years to make it.
One thing I find quite interesting is that, like, because the Lego movies that followed that, like you got the Lego Batman movie, and I think especially the Lego Ninjago movie, they've actually kind of sort of swifted away from that kind of genuine kind of authentic look, because there are some like non-Lego elements now.
Well, it seems like the different movies have a different approach to their like in-movie universe, whereas with the original Lego movie, there's a very hard divide between the in Lego world and the real world, whereas the Ninjago movie seems that the setting is as if the Lego is within the real world instead of them being so separate. So you see them among like real plants.
Yeah.
So I think it's not so much that they're drifting away from the original vision. It's just that there's different rules within the universes, because the Ninjago movie, it still used real pieces to represent like special effects, motion blur, all that sort of thing. It didn't bend the joints in ways they're not supposed to go.
Yeah, that's true. The whole cat in the Lego movie, the Ninjago one, that was kind of funny.
I actually haven't seen that film yet.
Oh,
I mean, I've heard it's like not the greatest, really.
It was decent, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's near as good as the Lego movie.
I mean, I definitely want to see it. I mean, if for nothing else, at least for the animation.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure it's good watch anyway.
I think the really cool thing about the Lego movies, though, is that like for as animators, like we could take a lot from them in a way.
Yeah, there's a lot of inspiration you could take.
Yeah, because I know in the Lego Ninjago movie, there's a lot of like things like, let's say if you're doing a battle or a fight sequence or something, or anything with characters, like you can take a lot away from their animation, because in a lot of it they do use Lego bricks to make motion blur and like really cool things. I
mean, if you go through it frame by frame, you could learn a lot of clever techniques, and it all translates to the real stuff.
I actually kind of want to try that.
Okay, so Rafael, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Penta?
Yes. The first one is, what is your step-by-step process in your brick filming?
Well, I've always kind of just made films as I go along, and it usually begins with one small idea or one specific joke that I think is, if I think a joke is good enough, I feel as if I have to make a film around it now. So that's usually where a script originates from. And other than that, there's no script, no storyboards. I just decide what they should say, record it, and animate it, and then next shot, do the same again.
Nice.
And it's not very professional. And if I was to make a more serious film, I'm sure I'd add a few more steps, but that's how it's been this far anyway.
Yeah. I'm like, when I watch your videos though, like they don't seem like they seem pretty professional. Like in terms of just like comedy and everything else, it's very well done.
I think when it comes to kind of like contests and stuff, when you've got a time limit, I don't really worry too much about that kind of those sort of small like technicalities and stuff. But I think if I've got like making work on a big project that doesn't really have a deadline, I do kind of put a lot of work into the storyboards and stuff. But I do kind of value at the same time that kind of sense of spontaneity. Like I said, I think there's a lot that you can put in like in the storyboard and stuff, and illustrate. But I think a lot of stuff sort of comes into your mind on the day of shooting. So I do actually kind of value both, probably 50-50 really. Yeah.
It's true. It's like when I make a brick film, a lot of times it's like while I'm doing the shot or like I start it, I'm like, oh, this would look better. Or it's just because the way you build a set isn't the exact same as like you picture in your mind when you write the script usually.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have some more professional, thought out set steps, but I'm never going to be completely rigid.
I mean, I kind of stick. I'm always quite brief when it comes to like simple dialogue scenes. But when it comes to kind of like the action scenes, that's when I do quite a lot of illustrations, just to kind of get a basic idea of what. Because with the script, I obviously it's I do I write down all the dialogue and stuff, but I don't really like to have to write down like every single action. Like when it comes to like a fight sequence, like he does this and he does that and he does this. I'd rather just like illustrate that. So whenever like write out like a description for an action scene in a script, I always stick quite brief until I go to the storyboard. So in that case, I think it's kind of valuable then. But yeah, when it comes to like simple dialogue scenes, I don't worry too much.
I think that what would really help in like brick films is like choreographing it with like actual people or doing storyboards with like pictures for like fight sequences. I think that would help a lot in brick films. I don't really see much of that.
Yeah, I'd like to try a reference animation with real people. It's something I've never done.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you follow like the animation principles, like easing in and easing out, I'm pretty sure it's probably easier almost with people in a way because the person just moves.
Of course, it's only if you want it to be realistic movement.
Yeah, true. And then I have another question for you. I said, how did you achieve the teleporter effect in Benny and Lee Parallel Panic?
For every teleporter effect, for every person or item that gets teleported, I just traced around it in GIMP and just took the outline version and a blank background without the item that gets teleported, and just manipulated its size in a couple of frames in Vegas, and added a few strange effects to it in Vegas as well. I can't remember what they were specifically, but yeah, all it was is just a couple of sprites created in GIMP and then a couple of effects put on frame by frame in Vegas. Pretty simple, but I thought it looks decent enough.
I think a lot of people, like in nowadays at least, like no simple effects and programs, like you can do a lot. And I think people don't really realize that now. They all want to like use After Effects and other stuff. Where for myself, I don't want to spend that much money to like actually get it when I don't need to. Like I can come up with other ways to do practical effects, you know?
Well, I like that it's trending towards in camera at the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of people seem to be trying to do as much in camera as possible, and I really like that trend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do kind of more of that right now because, like, when I used to do like gunshots and that kind of thing, I used to rely on kind of doing, sort of adding them in on post, like the explosions and stuff. But these now on the project I'm doing now, I actually really prefer that kind of that practical effect look of like when I use the the explosion of like a gunshot, I actually just use like a yellow brick rather than adding it in post. And I think I actually really like that kind of authentic look. Kind of the same way that Lego do it.
I've always mostly done just practical effects because they're like more fun. Because I don't like sitting on a computer editing a lot, and so they're a little bit more fun for me because I like get to create something, and come up with a way to solve a problem.
Yeah, it's more creative and it's more charming to watch as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big.
Yeah, there is kind of a disconnect, I think, with people who, when you've got like, and the same with like Hollywood movies and all that kind of stuff, when they rely too much on using these kind of digital effects and everything being CGI, people don't really kind of appreciate it in the same way. They just think, oh yeah, it's all done on a computer. But whereas like when you've got like these like practical effects, these things are actually happening, you really kind of think, wow, I really want to see what it's like behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think people appreciate the problem solving element.
Yeah.
I think there's a good balance though, like between visual effects and that. Like I think certain brick filmers do that well, and then certain brick filmers kind of go over the top.
Of course, there have been some really fantastic examples of digital effects in brick filming and CG.
Yeah, there have been. I mean, if you're a good VFX artist and you know how to like make the shot to like actually complete the visual effect and like make it not look out of place, then that's fine with me.
But I think the most important thing is keeping the frame rate the same as the animation.
Yeah, it's true.
Especially for mouth animation.
Yeah, mouth animation is not easy.
It's very rare for it to be good, but sometimes it's really good.
I think there are a couple of examples I could give of from last year. I think Hold the Lines. I think the visual effects on that were quite good. Pretty good.
Yeah, that was an impressive one.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
What was that one called with the Target Earth? The alien invasion film. That was incredible. That one.
Yeah, that was a great one from last year.
I would say the visual effects in Holy Lines have ever in Target Earth they weren't as good as Holy Lines because the visual effects were kind of like in certain parts. They kind of had for the animation. It looked like they had like a motion blur or something, timer mapping or something, messing the characters up. So I
Yeah,
think in
but
certain parts, the visual effects were over the top.
Tarkata
So,
did do more in camera, so that was good.
yeah,
I mean, one of the things I do appreciate is that kind of they went for that kind of Lego movie look. The effects did look like they were Lego. So that was kind of creative.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Do you have any more questions for
Yeah,
Sean?
sure.
or-
We were kind of briefly talking about it earlier about the kind of the fights and stuff. Because that's one of the things I've been trying to practice more because it actually is a really hard thing to animate well. Fight sequences.
Yeah.
So you had a bit of experience with that, didn't you? In Parallel Panic, Penta.
Yeah, Parallel Panic is basically the first decent bit of fight footage I ever shot. And I discovered that just a very small amount of camera movement really does help keep it action-packed and fast-paced feeling. And also for fight animation, it's very difficult for minifigures to fight because their limbs are so short and they don't bend in multiple places. So you have to give quite large movements with good impacts. You don't want to slow down on the impact of the punch. And one technique that I found was to not even show a frame at which point the two figures are in contact. I would just have some frames where a punch is about to hit, and then suddenly it jumps to a frame where the punch has gone past the other figure, but in motion it looks like it looks like a hit goes through them, and it seems to sell it quite well in motion.
I think it's kind of like
Yeah.
you realize that I think when you're doing when you're doing the fight scenes, it's kind of you can't go by the typical rules of easing in and out because you need to really kind of make the movements like larger and larger until the point of impact. You don't
Yeah, it's
ease
more
in because
exaggerated.
otherwise, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the best example of a fight scene I can think of is probably The Profession by Zach. I think that's probably I think it's some fantastic animation there.
Yeah, it's just it's beautiful.
But it's not just the animation; it's every element of that fight scene is just masterful. The cinematography and the sound design, they all add to it so well. Because the animation itself with the minifigures is limited, you have to consider the other areas to make it that good.
Yeah. That whole film was really good. I mean, Zach's just really good.
True. But
Is
yeah,
that-
The Profession is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think that I mean, a lot of it is how he shot it. I think I really actually kind of like that kind of handheld effect, shaking the camera because that actually adds a lot of tension, even though it's only a very slight amount. It does really does a lot. I think to the actual scene. And the quick cuts and stuff. As long as it's kind of done, properly, I mean, it can look fantastic. I think.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to make a fight scene like that. I was just like, I'd be like, I'm done.
Yeah, the quick cuts can be used well. They're pretty much hated at the moment because they're so overused in Hollywood films. But
yeah,
they seem to use them for a different reason. They just create the fight scene in the edit instead of while they're actually filming it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of it is to hide the poor choreography. A lot of the time, and I think I find that's kind of it does put a lot of people off that kind of look, and I think it's a shame because when it's done well, it can look fantastic.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've seen like the new Avengers trailers and other stuff. They still have a lot of those quick cuts, and it works good in superhero movies just because like the nature of the fighting and stuff. But I mean, those movies are so professionally done that a lot of it is not just quick shots too. They have a lot of long shots, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it is just how like how you shoot it, because even I think with quick cuts, I think I was talking to Zach the other day about it because he was saying that what you really need to do is kind of make sure that the thing you're focusing on is at the center, so it's very clear what's going on, because otherwise it's kind of
Yeah, I've always had that problem with certain films where it's very dark and it's so close that you can't even see who's who. Sometimes while doing that, it would even break the 180-degree rule just to make it worse.
Yeah.
So you do have to keep that in consideration.
Yeah. I have to say the best fight sequence second to that, or maybe even before it. It's not exactly like a fight, like hand-to-hand combat, but Fancy Pants' lightsaber battle.
Yeah,
That,
Force Unleashed.
That is
yeah,
great. Yeah,
that,
it's a great
that is
example of
Yeah,
pretty
fight.
good. In
that's
terms of
definitely
camera
amazing.
movement,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
in
was
terms
a
of
landmark for camera movement. Like shaky cam, handheld look, done well.
I just think it's kind of mad to think that was actually an entry to the animation challenge on the forums,
Bricks in
wasn't
Motion, yeah. It's
it?
got to
but
be.
also
It's
though,
one of the best ads for Bricks in Motion on YouTube in the
but
description.
also though, you know what though is that like that film itself, when you watch it, I guess you could say like a lot of the movements are like not small movements. So like they're pretty fast. And I think that's a big thing is like a lot of brick filmers think they have to make really tiny movements to make something so smooth. But they really just have to like know the some of the animation principles, even just one or two at least, and get the feel of like how to animate, you know?
You have to sort of carry it through after any
Mhm.
movement. You have to sell it at the end. You can make
Yeah.
basically anything look good.
Well, yeah, I found that too. Was like the beginning of my movement. I'm watching it in the playback, and it looks like it just sucks. But then once you ease it, then it might look good, or you like, you can sell it, like you said,
Yeah,
and you're like,
and
oh,
that's
this
what I
looks
think,
really good, actually.
especially for very large movements.
Hmm.
But the fight scene that I remember the most has to be Grace, because
Oh yeah,
I watched that early on, and I couldn't even comprehend how it was possible to make animation that good at the time. I thought it was just inhuman. I thought I'd never be able to make anything similar, and of course I didn't for the longest time.
yeah.
Yeah, I think great. Again, that's another example of. I think it's after Profession, I think Grace is probably my favorite kind of example of fight choreography in brick films.
Hmm. Yeah, Grace is so good. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a landmark.
I think what it really comes down to is like, what the thing is with brick film, it's like experience and really just taking your time making the video. Because I know for myself, whenever I rush, it's just like the shot can go from looking really bad if I'm rushing, and if I take time, it can go from looking really good. And it's just like that little bit of more time you take to do something, and a little bit of more thought you put into something. It's like 10 times better. So it's like I think preparation, but also just the time you put in makes your film a lot better.
The most important thing I discovered was to study animation frame by frame in
Oh yeah.
other people's big films. Anything I thought looked good, I'd go through it frame by frame and discover how it was done. And oftentimes it'd be surprising.
It is surprising because also when I was younger, I always thought that, oh my goodness, like every movement has to be really tiny. That's my biggest problem. And
Yeah,
then
I thought the same.
I watch people's stuff, and I'm like frame by frame, and I'm like, wait, like this is not every movement like really tiny. This is like bigger movements, but it's still better. And I'm like, how do they do this?
Yeah, the same happened to me. It was going through frame by frame when I discovered that you can actually do big movements and make it look good, make it look better.
Yeah,
Well, it's
I
kind of
never
funny,
like.
like because I started out like in when I first started brick filming, I kind of didn't really have any principles of how to animate. I had really no idea, and then I tried to like a couple of years ago I tried to kind of improve. So what I did is I did that kind of very tiny movements and everything was really smooth, and then I realized that actually it was lacking a lot of that kind of easing in and out, and then that's when I sort of really kind of try to practice that kind of the easing in and out and sometimes using the big movements when it's appropriate and stuff. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's
The one thing that kind of gets me in the brick film community is a lot of people think that you have to do 15 or 24. Like you can't do 12. Like it's just like a lot of people think that. And it's like it's not what FPS you exactly use. Like once you go below 12, you're kind of like, oh, okay, it's gonna look a little weird. But depending on your style. But like a lot of people think you have to do 15
Yeah,
or like
this comes up a
24.
lot.
And it's
And
just kind of like, guys, try 12. Try 12.
I
It depends on your style, I think, is a big thing too.
I think what happens is when people see good animation at 12, they probably assume it's 15 or 24. Because some
Yeah,
people can make 12 look amazing and some people can make 24 look bad. A lot of
this
the
is
well,
time
true.
people
I
think that
think
24 is too fast, but if you don't animate it too fast, then it's not too fast.
Yeah. The
it's
thing
whatever
is,
you're kind of like what isn't it really? Because like like if you look at Rio Force, because he does 12 frames a second, and his stuff looks just as good as anything by 15 easily.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in the technique. I mean, I'd say
Yeah,
somebody like Jay Silver could probably make 5 FPS look really good.
Just
well,
over to make 1 FPS. I'm joking now. No, but yeah, that's true. I think there's, how do you say it? Like, you usually can't make 12 look smoother. It's not about being smoother. It's just about looking good. It's like the style and like just making it the easing in and easing out. And like, there's certain things you can do to make 12 look as good as 15. Not necessarily, or better.
Not
it just
smoother,
depends,
but better.
like, yeah, smoother. Yeah, it doesn't really matter about. I think a lot of people like get confused on like, oh, it needs to be smoother. It's like no one cares about if it's smooth or not. It needs to just look good. It's like it doesn't matter exactly what FPS it is to make it look good. It's not about how smooth you look. I think
luckily, I think that this is coming up so often that the opinion is actually starting to change now.
Yeah, I've tried 12 and it's fun. I just like 15 better, just because of the style I do for certain films.
I just know it so well that I'm so used to all the timings that it would take a lot of practice to unlearn all that.
Yeah, I tried to switch once and I did a brick film and it worked okay, but it wouldn't have been near as good. Like the animation was okay, but it's like, okay, if I did that in 15, that would have been a lot better, just because I know it.
Yeah,
better.
because it's what you do, yeah.
And I kind of feel the same about, with me, because I always do 12. So if I was to move to 15, it wouldn't look as good, simply because I just don't know how 15 frames per second works,
Yeah.
And I'd say you're better off at practicing with 12 and really trying to improve your craft with 12.
Yeah.
Because if you get good at it, then you're. Well, I mean that's the professional standard, so you got an advantage there.
But one thing that I find though with like 12, the biggest thing that I find with it is that I like doing fight scenes and meaning like I'm gonna do some fight scenes in the future, and with 12 it's somewhat harder it's like it's possible, but like you have to be a better animator than I am.
Well,
and like
that can be where 24 on 2s comes into play.
Yeah, it's harder to make like faster movements and movements and fight scenes like really, really quick with 12, because like 12, the very style of it is semi more cartoony.
Yeah.
That's like how it's always been made. Like a lot of things like Shaun the Sheep and other things that were like on 2 or there in 24 and 2s. When they do 12, it's a lot more cartoony movement and it still looks good, but for like certain things that are going to look more real life, I guess you could say. Just because normal film and real life is more like a 24 FPS or like at least higher, so it's harder to make those faster movements with 12.
Okay, so we've covered quite a lot of discussions now. I think we'll probably head over to the final segment, the Brickfilm showcase. Yeah, are you okay with that?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, basically with each episode we're going to each pick one brick film to discuss. A brick film that we kind of feel needs more appreciation or whatever, just kind of discuss it. So my pick is Faithless by Matthew Gray. Okay, so this is a 2006 film, and it's about a man who gets killed, and he travels back in time and goes back to the events leading up to his death. And he slowly comes to realize why he was killed, and the whole kind of mystery of it all. So yeah, this is actually my third favorite brick film of all time, actually. So if you're interested to know, my first favorite brick film is America Outlawed by Doug Van der Rift, and Grace is my second.
Nice.
Yeah. I just think it's probably one of the most creative kind of stories that have come out of brick films. I think it's just really interesting.
No, yeah, I just watched that Faithless. I'd never seen it, but William had like recommended it. So
yeah, I think the thing is really the really interesting things about Faithless is just how well it's aged. Because I think the picture quality is is pretty good, but the special effects are incredible. Everything's aged pretty well.
I watched it again just now for this, and I completely agree. It looks great still. The effects are great, and also it's shot in a manner that seems as if he wasn't considering the limitations of brick filming with big sets and big street scenes with a lot of movement and a lot of camera movement, and especially the shot where the entire room spins around a couple of times, 360 degrees, must have been really difficult to shoot.
Yeah. I think really like for old brick films like that, it's really like how creative you are, you can do a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely.
And it is a shame that it's not on YouTube, and it for a while it became less well known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have heard of Grace, haven't they? I think partly because it's been on YouTube, and that always gets talked about. And I do kind of think in a way that Faithless is almost, could almost be as influential to the Brickfilm community as Grace had it been on YouTube.
Well, within the brickfilms.com community, it would have been known to everyone at the time. It was the best film winner of the awards for that year. So it would have been influential on a lot of the core community members. Although at the same time, it shows a lot of influence from films like The Letter and Cognizance already. So those would be more influential overall, since it's drawing from those, and later films would draw from those as well.
I really love how they reference Cognizance in the film. They show a clip of it and they discuss it. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
Actually, I haven't seen, I think, the other one.
Cognizance, yeah, it's a 2005 film, which was massively well known at the time.
Yeah. What's really interesting that I find like in older brick films is that some of them, like even the Magic Portal, was so creative that it still stands up to what we do today in a way. Maybe not camera quality, but like everything that he did was like, oh, that would be really hard to do today,
Well, if he did ever supply a better quality transfer, then it would look great by being on 16mm film.
That's true.
Okay, so Raphael, what did you pick?
I picked The River by Nikolas. I can't say Jaeger, or I can't say
Night Owl.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really, really like that film because of like the atmosphere he created. And when they're in the forest or the jungle, whatever it is, the main character, like the music and just atmosphere and like cinematography, everything like brings it together, and the sound effects. And I think it's a brick film that can like really, I guess you could say, show people how to create a film without like that much dialogue, because a lot of brick films have too much dialogue now, and it really like created something with just what the camera sees, which is really, really interesting. And also I really like the style of like his shallow depth of field. It created that atmosphere in the film because it kind of carried throughout the whole film. And I know a lot of people like kind of do both, but this kind of created like a distinct world within this brick film. And it's kind of the brick film that like makes you really think about like, okay, what's happening, because it's very confusing, but at the same time, it's like at certain parts it's not. But I don't know, I think just for me, why it was so good was just the sound design and the cinematography that like really, really made it like something that was like, wow, must have been like really hard to do. Like you could really tell that he took his time on it, and that it's just like, for me, it's a piece of art, I guess you could say.
There's a lot in The River that makes you want to go back to it. I think it's surprisingly really kind of like, yeah, I can rewatch it a lot. I think it's got a lot of rewatch value, I think.
Yeah,
definitely. I think
there's a lot like you can take from it for like your own stuff too. Well, like his music completely works with like the mood of it too.
I've said before that The River, I think, is the best looking brick film ever made, and just the best overall design, and really like nothing has even come close, except for maybe some of the animation in the Bricks in Motion documentary, which appears to be clearly inspired by The River in the forest section.
Yeah. So do you know if The River was using like glass like that for the background?
I don't really know. I don't know if he ever said much. Probably in chat he probably said about how it was made, but I don't know. It sure does
look like it though, because like right now I'm looking at a forest depth shot, and like even with a really shallow depth of field, I feel like you would need something to skew the background a little bit.
I think The River is so well done that it's one of the easiest brick films to forget that you're watching Lego.
Yeah. I think I got a lot of that one. I think it's like one of the shots when he's kind of like, moving down, the camera's like following him as you're seeing these different people and stuff. I find it probably some of the most iconic shots in brick film.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
And also, like when you're watching it, one thing I didn't mention is like his camera movement is amazing. Like
It's one of those
there's
films where every single shot is just fantastic.
yeah,
You
I
know,
was like every shot is like
amazing.
yeah, it's
And
like the on the forums thread of like where you see like the really awesome shots. It's like, well, why don't you just watch the river and you get like 100 of those?
even like the grain of the picture, it all
Yeah.
adds to it. It looks so good. And also, I recently found the river in HD and I put it up on the wiki. It's available.
Well,
For years it wasn't available in HD, but now it is again. So
Oh, I've
everyone
got to
should go
see
watch
that
it
then,
again.
yeah.
It
Yeah,
looks
definitely.
unbelievable.
Okay, so Penta, what's your pick then?
I picked even lesser known film called The Chameleon, which is a German brick film from 2011. And as far as I can tell, it was really only ever known within the German community, even though it has English subtitles on YouTube. And it's 9 minutes long, and it's quite plot heavy. It's about a group of agents who are protecting a guy in a house who's being followed by an assassin who's a master of disguise, and they fear that the assassin has entered the house, but they don't know who it could be. So there's a mystery element, kind of like The Thing, and it's another film that's it's sort of like, you know, it's live action inspired. I think all three that we've chosen are more rooted in live action film. It's something that you can make an exceptional brick film with basically no budget, using a lot of what you already have. Whereas if you had tried to create it as a live action short with no budget, you know, it wouldn't have really turned out as good. So it's a good practical use of brick film to make a short film like that. You know, it's not the only thing you can do. Obviously, you could. It's also good to make films that are more like animation, or even aware that they're made of Lego. But for these three picks, it shows the good side of making films that are you could have made in live action if you had the means, but you probably don't. But yeah, so the Chameleon it's very well shot with nice sets. It really sells the setting very nicely, and good sound design as well. And I think that if it had been known in the English community at the time, it probably would have won some awards. So it won awards in the German Steinerei Festival. It's definitely worth watching, and it's one that I discovered through the wiki work. And I think that, you know, it really could have been well known.
Yeah. I think that
Okay,
what's
so,
really cool about like all these brick films that we've chosen is that you can tell from all these brick films that when you're watching it, there's not like something that's out of place that like takes you out of the experience. So I know like a lot of brick films like might have like something that's kind of like jarring. Like let's say a sound is off, or like the sound doesn't sound like it belongs, or like maybe a visual effect, or maybe a shot, or like the pacing or something. Like something that kind of like takes you out of the experience, you know?
Sometimes there's
Yeah.
a gag that's sort of an out of place kind of Lego related gag.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And I think all these three brick films do very well at like not having any of those.
Yeah, these three are
Yeah.
all much more like legitimate short films, especially The River, of course.
They could all be live action films, I think, couldn't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting about them all.
You could, yeah.
That's what I was getting
And
at.
for anybody that's interested, I will include the links to all the videos in the description.
I said the one thing that would be nice to see in like the brick film community, which would be like insanely hard, is like a feature length brick film that was done just like one of those short films. Like that would be amazing to see. I mean, it's very not
I think
practical.
the closest is Copyright.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
the
true.
longest and most legitimate film, I think.
Oh, and actually, Doug Vandergris for 2 films, the America Outlawed and Pirates, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think they're as tight overall as Copyright, though. Of course, that's a very high bar to reach.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, is copyright is much higher quality in a lot of things. So, like, when Doug made his, it kind of seems like it was a lot longer ago than when copyright was made. I'm not sure.
I think another
But-
good thing about Maxime's films is that they have the soundtracks that are, you know, like TV show quality.
Yeah.
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 Well,
I
actually,
think to make
that's one of the topics I actually want to discuss in a future episode. Actually, you know, music scores in brick films. And I think Copyright's got one of the best scores. Brick
Easily.
films I can think of.
It's
All of his
true.
films do from the same composer.
Mhm.
Even Sheep, you know, the latest one has got a fantastic soundtrack.
I'm always impressed when people can make a memorable theme in a brick film score.
Yeah,
Plenty of
that's true.
good music, a good original music of brick films, but there's very few that have a motif that you'll remember. And yeah,
Mhm.
the Tommy and Evan
Yeah.
films have multiple. And another good example is Unrenewable.
Oh yeah,
And
Unrenewable. Wow. So good.
I think sometimes if a score is good enough, it can make you want to watch the film just because of the music.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
Yeah,
An
I think the
underappreciated-
biggest thing about like a feature-length brick film of any kind is really just like making an all-around film, and music plays a huge role, and also pacing, because I know in movies and just in brick films in general, most people don't want to watch longer brick films because it's kind of like it gets boring usually. But I think the biggest thing with like a longer brick film is like capturing your audience right away, and then just kind of like recapturing them, like every so, I don't know, minute, or like, I don't know, making it more entertaining, I guess you could say. Than most brick films that I've seen that are longer kind of are slow, or they kind of make you bored.
I think the problem is probably that anybody who has the capability to make a brick film that good isn't going to make it feature length, because if you're making it to that high quality, it's going to take so much longer to make a feature length film. So that's where the problem lies, I'd say.
Unless you're one of those people that like that's the only thing they want to do, so like they'll do it over a couple years span,
You could, but very few have.
Yeah, if that's all you want to do. But what is isn't the feature length like 45 minutes? Anything over 45 minutes or something?
It's
I think it is
40, I think, is the
40?
like generally recognized length among all the film groups.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, it's
3-hour
40
brick
minutes.
film. We're gonna make a 3-hour brick film shot in one day. I'm kidding.
I think the only brick film that's over an hour that I've watched in full is The Great Disturbance.
Yeah,
which is a good one.
I remember. I know that movie Bound was supposed to be longer than it was, but like they cut a lot and they kept changing the script and stuff. I liked it, but I don't know. There was a lot of things that were kind of not that well done, I guess you could say, or well planned.
I don't like the kind of references to Lego. It takes away from the seriousness of it. Kind of one of those examples that I think you were talking about earlier, that it takes you away from it.
Yeah, I think that was one film where it was jarring, where it can be well done, like in copyright again. But for a more general audience, it's not going to be forgotten that it's Lego. For a film like Bound that was meant to be for sale at Walmart, they knew that they had to reference the fact that it was Lego.
Yeah, I think also that it really depends like how you do it and what you're going for, because once you start a film off really serious, and
that's true. That's where it becomes jarring.
Kind of like you shouldn't break away from what you're already doing, because then you're kind of like changing your film. It's like you're making it something else than it is.
Yeah, copyright was already lighthearted, but whereas Bound starts off serious.
Yeah, it was a little more serious. There was more at stake, I guess you could say, in a way. I know that there's one brick film that my friends are making that was pretty serious throughout the whole thing, and it was kind of like an epic. It was Squire and the Scroll, but they never finished that film, sadly.
Yeah, I remember it was very, very hyped for a long time. A lot of people were looking forward to that. I mean, all the people who were looking forward to it might be gone by now. But how long was that going to be?
Like 30 something, or
wow,
I'm not sure. But the thing is about that film it wasn't so much the length exactly, because they would have finished it a while ago. But the problem was with that film, there was so many like visual effects to make it even bigger.
Oh, right.
That was what it was taking it longer, And the visual effects were really good, actually. Like they placed well, like in the film, and there was a lot of like 3D extensions.
Yeah, those are
good. Yeah, it worked, but the problem is, it's like I said, it just made it so much more drawn out, and that's the thing. That's kind of like why, if I ever made a bigger brick film, most of the shots would be like, if I was gonna do an extension of some kind of green screen or to make something look bigger, I probably wouldn't put a 3D background in the background. I would probably put another set in the background, And I think that, I think that
there's 2 layers of sets.
Yeah, it does. And I think too is that like when you're sticking with practical effects like that, it just goes a lot faster,
Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps up the episode for today. I've had a really good discussion. Thank you guys for joining me.
No problem.
Awesome. It'll be fun to do it again.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope to see you again with the next episode, which will probably be in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you for watching, and I've been William. You can find me on social media at LEGW Studios. Raphael, where can they find you?
Oh, Instagram at BlackSmith Films 1, I think, and then Twitter at Rafael Figueroa. Just go to my channel. There's links.
Yeah, I've got links down below in the description. And
Cool.
Penta, where can they find you?
Sillypenta on most social media and YouTube, and of course, make sure to read the wiki. There's a lot of words.
Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend checking out the wiki. It's a really great source of information for brick films throughout its history. It's a great site. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. Bye.
Okay, see ya.